Let's be brutally honest. When a woman comes back, it's rarely because she had some grand epiphany about your worth. It's not love that suddenly reignites in the middle of the night. The truth is far more calculated. And for most men, it's a bitter pill to swallow. Women don't return because they miss you. They return because they've lost control. When you completely cut off contact, no calls, no texts, no breadcrumbs, you disrupt the dynamic where she felt dominant. That shift unsettles her. She's used to being the center of attention, the one in charge. And when that power suddenly vanishes, something inside her panics. Doubt creeps in. Fear takes hold. Fear that you've moved on, that someone else has taken her place, that in your eyes, she's no longer the prize. Now here's the hard truth. Most women don't come back for you. They come back for the control they lost. It's not about your looks, your achievements, or even your personality. It's about the power shift. The absence you create forces them to act, and this is where most men fail. The moment she calls, texts, or shows up, they crumble, they chase, they confess. They slip right back into her frame, handing her back the control she was so desperate to reclaim. No contact isn't magic, it's psychology. When a woman feels she controls a man, it boosts her confidence. As long as she dictates the terms of the relationship, she feels secure. But the second that control is stripped away, she's left in a void, one she never expected. And that's when the game changes. When you stay silent, you force her into uncertainty. She moves from being in control to being in the dark, questioning everything. At first, she might enjoy the space. But then, curiosity takes over. Doubt creeps in. She starts wondering, do you still think about her? Have you already moved on? The longer you remain silent, the stronger that pull becomes. And eventually, she reaches out. Not out of love, not out of genuine emotion, but to see if she still has power over you. This isn't a rekindling. This is a test. And if you fail it, if you rush back eager to please, you reset the cycle, handing her exactly what she wanted. But if you understand the game, you'll know that sometimes the real power is in never answering at all. Imagine this. Donald was always the one reaching out, the one texting first, the one planning dates, the one making sure Helen felt cherished. And Helen? She grew comfortable. She knew Donald would always be there, always chasing, always proving his devotion. So she stopped trying. But one day, something changed. Donald stopped. No texts, no calls, no reaction. At first, Helen barely noticed. She assumed he'd come back like always. But days turned into weeks, and the silence started to gnaw at her. The absence wasn't just quiet, it was deafening. She felt the shift, the power slipping from her grasp, and that's when she reached out. Not because she missed him, not because she realized his worth, but because she needed to know, was he still under her spell? See, for many women, being pursued is validation. Every message, every call, every plan reassures them. They are wanted, desired, irreplaceable. The moment that chase stops, it flips a switch in their minds. Doubt creeps in, questions swirl. If he's not chasing me, who is he chasing? If I'm not his priority, has he already moved on? Your attention was her safety net. It made her feel significant. But when you take that away, she's left with nothing but uncertainty. And uncertainty drives people mad. Now take Arnold and Emma. Arnold was the giver. He called first. He planned the dates. He showered Emma with compliments. And Emma? She enjoyed the attention, but she never felt the need to reciprocate, because she assumed Arnold would always be there. Until he wasn't. One day, Arnold stopped. No calls, no texts, no reactions to her posts. At first, Emma brushed it off. She was confident he'd come crawling back. But as days stretched into weeks, something shifted inside her. She found herself checking her phone, waiting for his name to appear. Her mind raced. Why wasn't he reaching out? Had he moved on? Had she miscalculated his devotion? Eventually, she sent a casual message, an excuse, really, just to see if she still had his attention. But for Arnold, this wasn't a game. This was him reclaiming his value, making her realize what she had taken for granted. Going no contact doesn't manipulate. It disrupts. It shatters predictability. When a woman knows exactly when and how you'll respond, she feels secure. But the moment that pattern is broken, she is forced to question everything. As long as you're always available, you're an open book. She never has to wonder, never has to question. But when you remove yourself, when you stop feeding that certainty, you become a mystery. And nothing captivates the mind more than the unknown. But when you vanish, you leave her with something far more unsettling than silence. You leave her with questions that won't stop haunting her mind. What is he thinking? Has he moved on? Does he even care anymore? The predictable rhythm of your attention, the comfort of knowing you were always there, is gone. And that absence, it creates a void that isn't just unsettling, it's frustrating. She was used to your consistency, maybe even took it for granted. But now, she can't read you. She can't predict your next move. And that shift creates a sense of urgency she never felt before. Suddenly, the roles have reversed. The power dynamic has flipped. She's the one scrambling to regain her footing. And here's the brutal truth. It's not just about emotions. It's about pride. No one likes to feel they've lost influence over someone who once seemed devoted. And by breaking contact, you send a message louder than words. She no longer controls you. You've taken back your power. You're no longer playing by her rules. And this creates a paradox. On one hand, she resists chasing you because admitting she wants you back means admitting she's lost control. But on the other hand, the silence gnaws at her. Because silence tells her one thing: she's no longer a priority. And that hits her ego harder than anything else. Consciously or not, she'll feel compelled to reestablish the connection, not out of love, but out of a deep, primal need to restore the control she once had. This is why so many women come back after no contact. It's not about missing you. It's about reclaiming dominance, about restoring the emotional stability that she once dictated. But there's something even more powerful than control: the fear of being replaced. When you stop reaching out, you introduce a possibility that shakes her to her core. What if he's moved on? She might be able to handle distance, but the thought of another woman stepping into her place, that's unbearable. You were her safety net, the assurance that no matter what, you'd always be there. But now she has to face a terrifying question. Is someone else taking my place? Even if she tells herself she's fine, that she doesn't need you, that it's not a big deal, deep down, a different thought creeps in. What if he's already found someone new? When a woman senses she could be replaced, it triggers something instinctive. Women thrive on feeling desired. But the idea that a man she once had power over is now emotionally, or worse, physically, invested in someone else, that's a different kind of pain. And often, it's not about love. It's about proving she still holds value, about proving to herself that she's still irreplaceable. The fear of being replaced isn't just discomfort, it's a shock to the system. And more often than not, it's the one thing that forces her to act. Even if it's just to test the waters, she might reach out subtly. Just a simple text, a casual check-in. But make no mistake, it's not just to see how you're doing. She's searching for answers. Has someone else taken her place? That thought alone gnaws at her, consuming her mind with quiet anxiety. And it's this uncertainty, the possibility of being replaced, that compels her to reassert her position in your life. Because deep down, every human has one fundamental need: to feel irreplaceable. For women, the idea that another woman could step into their role is more than unsettling, it's threatening. It stirs an insecurity she might not even recognize at first. But that insecurity drives her to reconnect, often before she even understands why. And here's where most men go wrong. They believe the way to win her back is through availability, responding instantly to texts, dropping everything when she calls, rearranging plans just to fit her schedule. It feels like the right move in the moment, but in reality, it kills attraction. See, people don't crave what they can easily have. If she knows, without a doubt, that you'll always be there, she stops valuing your presence. That's not because she's cruel. It's because human nature takes consistency for granted. But this doesn't mean you should play games or act cold. It means you should have a life. A real one. A life that doesn't revolve around her. Because that is what makes you attractive. Women are drawn to men with purpose, passion, and independence. When you have your own ambitions, when you're focused on something bigger than her, it shifts the dynamic. Suddenly, she's not the center of your world. And that realization makes her see you differently. She notices the change, she feels it, and instead of taking you for granted, she starts to wonder, how do I earn his attention again? So stop making her the sun around which you orbit. Let her see that your life moves forward, with or without her. That's when she realizes what she's at risk of losing. And that's when she comes back. Not just to maintain control, but to win you back. Because when you live with focus, when your energy is directed toward something greater than chasing her, it forces her to reevaluate your worth. And here's the secret most men never understand. Silence is power. When you go no contact, the absence of your presence creates something far more powerful than words. A void. A void that she begins to feel. And for her, that silence isn't just empty space. It's deafening. It forces her to confront emotions she might have been avoiding. Even the most confident women rely on emotional exchanges to validate their place in someone's life. When that communication disappears, it rattles them. Because when a man who once chased her suddenly stops, she's left asking the one question she never thought she'd have to. Did I just lose him? Silence is never just silence. It's a trigger, a void, a mirror she can't escape. At first, she might brush it off, convince herself she doesn't care, that she's better off without you. But then, the questions creep in. Why isn't he reaching out? Has he moved on? Is he happier without me? These aren't just fleeting thoughts. They become intrusive, looping endlessly in her mind, gnawing at her certainty. See, when you were chasing her, she felt secure. She knew you were there, always waiting, always reaching. But now, the roles have reversed. Your silence forces her to confront something she never expected. She cared more than she was willing to admit. And that realization? It hits harder than any argument ever could. But silence does something else, something most men overlook. It creates emotional space. By stepping back, you give her time to reflect, to sit in the discomfort of your absence. At first, she might feel fine. She might even convince herself she doesn't need you. But as the days pass, the lack of contact starts to sink in. She replays old conversations. She questions what went wrong. She begins to realize that without your attention, something feels missing. And eventually she faces a choice: reach out or let go completely. But here's the truth. For most women, staying silent forever is unbearable. Because silence forces vulnerability. It forces her to confront emotions she once ignored, to acknowledge a loss she didn't think would affect her. This is why so many women break no contact first, not because of love, not because of regret, but because they're struggling to cope with the emotional void you left behind. And in that moment, your silence becomes your strength. Let's be honest, women love the chase. The thrill of winning someone's attention, the intoxicating rush of knowing they've captivated a man. But here's what they hate: losing that chase. When a man is too predictable, too available, the excitement fades. The challenge disappears. But when he becomes elusive, when he focuses on his own life, maintains his independence, and stops making her the center of his universe, The game resets. Suddenly the chase is back on. And here's the key. It's not about playing games. It's about balance. When you hold on to your purpose and passions, you create an energy that's engaging, dynamic, and fresh. You become someone worth pursuing, not because you're manipulating her emotions, but because you're living authentically and confidently. And confidence, that's what keeps her coming back. So remember this, silence and independence aren't tactics. They are the marks of a man who values himself and his time. And that, more than words, more than effort, is the kind of man she will chase. The thrill of the chase is exhilarating. It's addictive. It ignites something primal, a rush of adrenaline, an obsession with winning. But here's what most men fail to see. It's not just about winning her over. It's about keeping her engaged, keeping the chase alive. See, you might think that once you've captured her attention, the game is over, that the effort can stop. But the truth? It's not about catching her. It's about sustaining her interest. And this is where most men fall short. They get comfortable. They assume they've already won. They believe once she's there, she'll always stay. But women don't want to be won. They want to keep winning. They crave the challenge, the excitement, the mystery. And the moment they sense the pursuit is over, the moment they realize there's nothing left to strive for, attraction starts to fade. Women love being pursued. It makes them feel desired, special, valued. But if the chase ends too soon, they start to wonder, is he really interested in me? Or just the idea of me? The thrill of pursuit gives meaning to the connection, the uncertainty, the excitement, the effort. It all makes them feel chosen. But don't misunderstand. The chase isn't about manipulation. It's not about pretending to be distant. It's about having a life, a purpose, a drive beyond her. When she sees that you're busy building your own world, but still choose to make time for her, it's no longer a game. It's genuine, and that's what keeps her hooked. So if you want her to stay interested, don't make the mistake of thinking the chase ends once you win her. Instead, embrace the reality. She needs to feel like she's still being pursued. Because the moment you stop making her feel worth chasing is the moment she starts losing interest. And here's something most men don't realize. Your absence speaks louder than your presence ever could. Being constantly available might feel like the right move, like it will make her appreciate you more. But in reality, it does the opposite. The more accessible you are, the less valuable you seem. Men who are always available, always texting back within seconds, always dropping everything to accommodate her, don't appear devoted. They appear desperate, and desperation is never attractive. Women are drawn to men with ambition, men with priorities, men who have their own lives. When you pull back, when you create space, you send a message without saying a word. You are not a man at her beck and call, and that stands out. Because when you create boundaries, you create attraction. If she knows you'll always be there, she won't feel the need to put in effort. But when she has to work for your attention, when she feels like she has to earn your time, that's when the chase begins again. That's when she stays hooked. She stays